Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 0 of the Shrimp Society podcast. My name is Bryan Early. People mostly call me Burley, and we are very, very, very excited to have you guys here today. And episode 0, this is a prequel. It's nothing much. It's kind of majority of it's going to go in the backstory of how I got into NFTs and kind of leading up to like how this project came about, because 2 years ago, I didn't even know what Ethereum was. And now today, I'm helping build a project with some of my best friends and some of the new friends that I've never met before. And it kind of shows, you'll see the story of how this space really can network people and really leverage everything. And so kind of over this content series, this Shrimp Society NFT, we really want to dive into just educating people and really portraying our missions and values into this space, because NFTs as a whole, there's a lot of cash grabs right now. 99% of these projects will go to zero, and that's just based on how much supply is out there. 10, 15 projects are coming out a day, and you can see by the next day they're at zero. The space moves in microseconds. One day feels like 7 years in the real world, and people get a lot of FOMO. And so that's why we want to be here as the Shrimp Society to kind of educate and realize that this is real money people are playing with. And obviously you've seen that through all the headlines, the $1 million gains, the hundreds of thousands that young kids are making off this, and that's what really brings people into the space. But when you're not educated, you don't have a fundamental framework of why you're investing, you can get hurt. And so that's what we're going to try to go through. In different episodes, we'll interview people in the industry, kind of give more insight on our project and how we're trying to elevate this industry. And if you clicked on this episode, it means you're interested in NFTs and you want to create that generational wealth for yourself. And so what I want to go through today is my story into NFTs. And you'll kind of see as I go through this that I'm more everything happens for a reason guy. I'm very philosophical or psychological with things. And I really do believe that, everything happens at the right time for the right reasons. And you'll see that how this worked in my situation with all the events that just kind of connected, leading me to NFTs. Where it all started was back January 22nd. And as you're saying, that's not that long ago, but I didn't even know what Ethereum was at this point. And so the reason, or how it kind of came to be, was during this Wall Street Bets extravaganza. I don't know, most people, you probably know about it. It was a situation where GameStop was a stock at the time that was making $0. In some crazy math calculation, what all the premise was, if a lot of people bought the GameStop stock, so in mathematical, with all the ins and outs, whatever, blah, 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 if a lot of people bought GameStop stock, the price would appreciate exponentially, making people a lot of money. It sounds idiotic and kind of, how is this possible? And the fundamentals aren't there. And as an accountant, I'm a finance accounting major, and I always thought to myself, oh, it's about balance sheets, about cash flow, it's about tangible dollars and all these things. And so as all of a sudden one day you saw a group of Reddit traders turn a stock that was trading at $15, $20 turn into $300, $400 a share, and all through one Reddit thread of some guy just telling a bunch of people to just buy this one stock. And it kind of just, seeing this whole extravaganza just go on really blew my mind, because as you could read those Reddit threads, you just saw people saying, I've never invested a stock in my life, but I just took out 10 grand and it's just throwing it at GameStop. And you could just see the screenshots of people on their Robinhood portfolios making millions and millions and millions of dollars. And I was just so confused at the time, because as you see the price going up $400. Like the market cap of GameStop was astronomical, but in reality, they're making negative dollars. And so the whole thing just kind of mind boggled me. And at this time, I was January, I was studying for the CPA just in my apartment. I was living in a solo at the time, and studying accounting for 10 hours a day is just not really enjoyable. So I really wasn't loving life at the time. And so being in just like at a computer, sitting there 10 hours a day, you read everything on the internet. And so once this whole Wall Street Bets thing came about, I texted one of my buddies, Blake, and he told me to look into Bitcoin and Ethereum as like exposure for speculative assets, because once this Wall Street Bets extravaganza happened, all finance hedge fund traders that had the fundamental theories of math and all this equations, they were so confused because this was the first time that the math wasn't even there. And so after my buddies sent me this Bitcoin Ethereum, I'd never really exposed myself to it. I remember in 2017, one of my buddies had told me about Bitcoin, and I really didn't get it. I was really just ignorant at the time. I was just saying, oh, you can't touch it. What's the value in it? I was just one of those. And from there, started diving into it, kind of this whole Bitcoin, just looking at like the value as a store of value. But the thing that really got me interested was this whole concept of Ethereum. And this was the first time I had ever heard of Ethereum. This one guy was talking about how Ethereum was programmable. And so he put it in the analogy of Bitcoin is compared to gold, where it's a store of value. You can't use it, and it kind of sits there and it appreciates. But Ethereum is the comparison of the oil. And in that sense is how you think about when oil was revolutionized and kind of brought into, oil fuels cars. It fueled the entire industrial revolution, and it's not as valuable as gold, but in the sense it was valuable. It's how it kind of produced all the technological revolution for pretty much how society is today. And so that's where I started to kind of think of, oh, wow, like this can actually be something where, there's different utility cases for this new programmable money where instead of having it just sitting there, you can only trade it. You can now program different things on top of it, essentially as if it's like the App Store. On Ethereum, where these NFTs and DeFi apps, I kind of just thought of them in the sense, it's like the Angry Birds, the Twitters, the Facebooks coming around, the Ubers, in this whole Apple Web 2 era. And so that's where I kind of just got more interested in Ethereum at the time. And I didn't really know what to do with this information. I put a little bit of money in Bitcoin and Ethereum. And so then I was just kind of, I'll just explore it a little more. And so happened right the next day, my brother sends me a text to me and my dad, and it's an article sent to him by one of his buddies. And it says, I spent $35,000 on a video you could find on the internet. So I clicked on it, and it was the first article that I'd ever been introduced to that mentioned NBA Top Shot. And this was the day after I learned about Ethereum and NFTs and kind of just the whole basis of it. So I started just reading through it and talked about, the digital scarcity and the asset and the blockchain and how you can instantaneously send this moment to anywhere in the world, but you could just still watch it on YouTube. So I didn't really get it at the time. I was just one of those. I was like, I just learned about Ethereum. It's just kind of interesting. Maybe it is. And so I went and I bought my first moment. I bought a Shy God, Oklahoma City Thunder, had to get my boy, got it for $10. And I was like, you know what? Just leave it here and kind of just dip my toe in. Fast forward a little bit to the next week, 1/27, I was kind of just scrolling TikTok, and as Mr. FBI man, he kind of knew I was a little down in the dumps at the time, and just, as I said, I was CPA studying, and that's probably just, as you know, from probably maybe friends, family that's ever done it before, it's just one of the worst times because you're just sitting at a computer for 10 hours a day studying accounting. And so a TikTok came up and it said 3 Joe Rogan podcasts to really make you feel happy. And one of them they mentioned was Naval Ravikant. So I saw the clip and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go test this out. Go onto YouTube, turn it on, and kind of within the first probably 10, 15 seconds of watching Naval, I knew that this guy was onto something. And it's kind of just like the way he speaks. Naval's a modern thinker, philosopher, investor. And he kind of just puts everything, life, business, in just simple psychological ways. And you can just say he had so many, speaks in so simple terms and great quotes. And he's very just thought out. And he kind of just seemed like the Buddha in real life. And there was a 2.5 hour podcast, and I just dove into it, and he just opened my mind up to so many different things. And so where I went from there is I was like, I had to dive into more content to him. So he created this tweet storm, and that was the inspiration behind the title of this podcast. It was called How to Be Rich Without Getting Lucky. The whole basis is where he has it so it's clickbait, and then he brings you in. And so then it's not like, oh, you have to do these steps and then this will make you a certain amount of money. And that's not how he goes. He wants to teach you his lessons and his experiences and his perspective on how business and people work to help create a fundamental framework to kind of teach you how you can create your own wealth for your own human. Because in a sense, being rich is just values and dollars, but in reality, real, true generational wealth, he says, is pretty much just being financially free. If you're working for someone from 9 to 5 and you're getting dressed for someone to go to a job with a dress code and being told what to do, are you really free? And that kind of just, it just blew my mind. And he had so many different quotes from this podcast. It was 6 hours, and you can kind of just tune into bits and pieces. But one of just the biggest standing out to me was just one of them was the 2 worst addictions in life are heroin and a monthly salary. And I kind of heard that quote, as he said, is, are you really free if you're working for someone else? And it kind of just stood out to me because it's someone going against that whole path that everyone's supposed to go on. When kind of growing up, I'm from the Northeast, and I'm from middle class family and kind of just a good area. And the whole basis for everyone growing up is you go to school, you go to college to get a major, you get a major to get a job, and you get a job just to work for the rest of your life. And no one really ever had that perspective of, you don't really need to do that. You can do what you want to do, because in this day and age, we live in an era of infinite technology and infinite leverage and tools to do so many different things. And you really could create yourself as an individual creator to create that generational wealth for yourself, because the internet explores yourself and you can reach such a wider network of people. And so he explained this to me in such a simple way that it just blew my mind open to so much more curiosity. And that's one of the biggest things that he tries to teach the people. He says, you really want to focus on taming the mind and exploring your curiosity. And how when you think about new things is when you tell something to someone that they don't know it, sometimes they put up that guard of, oh, you're just calling them stupid because they don't know about it. And that's where people really have that disconnect, especially in something like this space, where you have to be willing to be a fool and have to have that beginner's mindset, and you have to really be able to start over. And it's once you start over at this foundation, it's kind of the incremental process when you come back and you start connecting things and you really start to build this foundational framework, and then all of a sudden 2 things might connect and you have that aha moment. That's the curiosity that people are starting to live for. And that's where I've kind of hit with this industry. When I started in this space in January, there was only so much information on it, and everyone was still very new to it. And that's what was so intriguing to me about it, because everyone was learning at the same time. And so all of a sudden, like, things just started connecting, and I thought I had like this very aha moment. So he thinks the internet's the most undervalued tool of our generation, because in reality, you can imagine the platform of having the ability to connect to 4.5 billion people in the world instantaneously. And I think people really don't get that yet. And that's the reason of like the whole fundamental theory of why cryptocurrency is a thing. And so in this episode, kind of more things he goes into is, as I said before, one of them was leveraging the internet. You don't need to be good at everything anymore, because now you can just find someone to do it. For me, I'm good at business development, I'm good at project management, but I have no art skills. I got no graphic design skills. But that's something that can really now be outsourced in any way. It's as maybe as you have a friend that's good at art, maybe you have a family member that's good at art, or maybe you don't, and you can just go on Twitter and tweet at someone, oh, can anyone do this little art piece for me? And you can pay them $10-15. And even if you don't even want to go with that, you can go on Fiverr now and just even put up a job posting, and by the end the code generation will put in 10 to 15 suggestions of what artist will be perfect for your project. And that's kind of the way we're going in society, of you really don't need huge businesses to kind of run different things. As you can see in big corporations, you can see, I work in the public accounting industry, and how they have so much turnover and things like the Big Four that they've started not even hiring as many new kids because so many people leave. So they've just sent all that work offshore to just automate the process because things are coming simpler and simpler. And so that's why when people are seeing this technological revolution happen, you're being stupid if you're not going to be embracing it and using it to the best of your ability. And so that's where, after leveraging the internet, that's why he's such a believer in digital assets. And he goes into digital scarcity, how when you think about so many people in the world, think about the top richest people, someone like Jeff Bezos says he doesn't have cold hard cash sitting in the bank. His wealth comes from his equity that's in stock that is just sitting there and appreciating over time. And so that's where it's kind of, as that quote says, is having this two worst addictions of heroin and a monthly salary. The reason that is because when you have a monthly salary of recurring income and kind of you spend most of it that comes in, so it becomes this cycle of, oh yes, you're making a good amount of money. You could be starting at 70,000 a year. You go up to 100,000 a year. You go up to 150. You go up to 200 to 500. But when you're going that incremental process of going and getting more money, also your expenses become that more incremental as well, where in the sense you think you're making a lot more money, but in reality, you're pretty much coming with the same outcome. Having this ability to generate assets that work while you sleep and appreciate while you sleep. And that was where I kind of saw this new way of, oh, it's very hard to get in equity stocks because, okay, you can buy so many stocks, but you can only get so much market returns. And so there's this new area of infinite assets, which is the internet. And that's where you have so much differentiated stuff where NFTs come into now this scarce asset where equity doesn't need to be tangible. As you saw with GameStop stock, it was making negative dollars. Their cash flow was actually negative, and for some reason it was trading at $400. Where was the value in that? And that's where it kind of just made sense to me that, you know what I mean, the only reason people put value to something is because they attach the value to it. It's the reason why gold's valuable. In reality, you can't use gold for anything. You can only trade gold for the price that people attach the value to it. And so that's why it kind of debunked the theory for me that, oh, something could actually have value that you can't touch. The next point you kind of went into that is signaling value. And so people in societies, we all like to signal. The only reason you have fancy clothes or things like that is so people can see you in your fancy clothes. When you get dressed in the morning, you don't think about, oh, what do I want to wear? You really think about, oh, what do I want to wear so people can look at me and think of me in this particular situation. People have been signaling certain things for years. One of the biggest things that stands out to me is fraternities, sororities, and kind of communities within a college campus. You go around campus and you see people wearing fraternity t-shirts, you have sorority backpacks, you have buttons and all these things, as they're just signaling to other people on campus is that they associate with this community. And so where the digital asset comes in is now you have the ability to signal to people on a wide range of networks. In the sense, no one can touch your JPEG avatar. Doesn't mean they can't see your JPEG avatar. It makes more sense to think about something that's very valuable that you own in your house. So you have pair of $10,000 Jordans that are just sitting in your closet. No one can really see that. Versus if you have a crypto punk or an ape, that's your avatar photo, that's being spread as value that you're signaling to people that are across billions of people in the world. And so that's where I kind of saw the theory of people really do like signaling things and they like hyping up things to other people, and where now NFTs and things like that and digital assets can explore that on a wide range of values. And so the last point that kind of Naval hit on is kind of this network effect, and how right now, as you saw, the reason why the Wall Street bets and why I was so interested in that whole extravaganza was just, it was this network effect, and it was the first time the internet really saw the social power. And so he brought up this theory. It's called Metcalfes Theory. It says, simply put, the value of the communication network is proportional to the square number of its users. The more people that you have on this network, whatever it is, it can be anything. It could just be a community. It could be an online network. The more value that it creates. You think of a company like Facebook. Right now, Facebook is one of the biggest companies in the world. It's multi-billion-dollar, almost $1 trillion company. And the reason for it is really because of the people on its network. You think of how many competitors they used to have. They had MySpace. And MySpace at the time was very big, but where is it today? It's completely gone. The reason why you can ask someone is, why are you not on MySpace? It's because your friends are on Facebook. And it just shows that they have slowly built this incremental ecosystem of a huge network of you're connected with all your friends and family across the globe. And now this network that they have of almost 3.5 billion users a day almost, that's where the value comes in. They have tangible products, but the main real core value is this insane network where they can reach news, information to anywhere around the world. And so that, after hearing this Metcalfes theory of seeing that with a company in the value like Facebook and seeing the Wall Street bets, that's where I kind of just had that aha moment into NFTs where, okay, this is where I see the value is kind of not because you can't touch it. A lot of things that are valuable you can't touch. If you think of a Jordan rookie card, someone just sold one of those for $3-4 million, and in reality, someone's probably never going to touch that card. When you buy that card, it's going to be in a dehumidified case, stored in a safe that's locked in an air-conditioned room, and it's going to never see sunlight. And so in the sense is, why do you even have the physical card? Because when someone buys that from you, you got to have the upkeep, you got to ship it. What if during shipping it gets intercepted, or what if it gets damaged during all that? And then that kind of really just opened my eyes to, okay, like this could really be something of like an industry. And so the last point I'll go into Naval is the reason why I think, as I said, society is so hard to change, and people just are ignorant to so many ideas, how I was with Bitcoin in 2017. This is the quote that kind of stood out to me the most. He said, if people say it's stupid, it's probably something genius. And that's where I was just like, NFTs are the next thing. Because when I went back and I just looked at Top Shots and this concept of people able to buy YouTube videos and clips and sell them on the internet instantaneous across anywhere in the world, everyone I told that to literally thought I was crazy. And I don't know why, it just made me love it even more. People saw taxis as a monopolization and kind of the way of a random someone to drive you around and get you where you need to your destination. No one thought that would change. And now you see Uber and Lyft. Someone thought, the selling vacation rentals on Craigslist, how that could ever be an industry. And now you have Airbnb. So many things are just revolutionized by technology, and this concept of leveraging the internet has gone in for so many different years, and people really haven't realized that we are shifting to this Web3 generation of digital assets, and they're not going to be the main thing. Obviously you're going to have still everything else in the world, but it's just something to keep in mind too, because it's game-changing technology. So that's where I kind of had this, okay, maybe we're onto something, NFTs, let's go. And now I take this deeper dive into Top Shot. So you kind of see that it had this digital assets and could send it anywhere in the world. You didn't have the upkeep. You didn't have shipping costs. It was essentially, I framed it as a digital trading card. And my whole thought of it is how a rookie card for Jordan went for $3-4 million is, what's the value of a playable moment as you think of maybe LeBron James, the block he had in the Game 7 finals against the Warriors. What's the value of a 101 of that? And on top of that, you kind of saw how Top Shot blueprinted their project. It kind of was that base NFT to kind of show everyone what this actual next level technology is, so it can be a collectible. But then they moved into this utility and community aspect where they wanted to be the fan currency of the NBA. They have different aspects where, you hold a certain amount of moments, you can get free tickets to this game. Or in my head, it can go into so many more experiences where it's like, if you have these certain moments, you can get free beer passes at sports games, or you have 10 or 100 moments, you get NBA League Pass for free. And you really kind of think about, once you see the utility of combining the blockchain plus the digital asset perspective, is you can create this unlimited amount of possibilities. And then on the last part where Top Shot introduced me was this introduction to community, how I was never really on Twitter. I was back in Twitter in high school, and then Top Shot, all the news was going through there. So when I was first getting into it, it was instantaneous. There was all these Twitter accounts that were like the news, the insiders, like the kind of the Wojs of the Top Shot space. But you kind of realize is everyone was there for the enjoyment of this space, and everyone was really good energy. You started to see the trend everyone saw of the good morning, and kind of realizing that people in the past year when it was COVID, everyone was inside and kind of getting really down on themselves, and they weren't able to connect with family members and friends. And you saw this community start to come together over the internet. And that's where I think the digital revolution that we're kind of seeing kind of sped up, because everyone was inside for so long that they started just to connect with people over the internet. And you hear so many stories of people meeting friends, best friends now over just the internet. And it's kind of where I saw a lot of the value of really everyone there wasn't there for the money. They were there for just the enjoyment of Top Shot overall. And so kind of I just thought of it as like an exploration. It's going to be my first kind of NFT. So I dove into it more, and I was able to make some quick. I bought that shy for $10, and then I sold it for $15 the next couple days later. And I started to just, collect moments, and, I wasn't trying to make the quick gains. I was like, I started collecting my favorite players. I got a job. I'm a huge Grizzlies fan. I got a Dame Dollar. I got a LeBron. And so I started just having this collection of, just for the enjoyment. And so now fast forward to a couple weeks after that, it started to get in early February, and all of a sudden Top Shot went absolutely viral. It went from when I got on of having 10, 15,000 people on the platform to then 100,000 people on the platform within 2 weeks. And so I saw my portfolio somehow go from, I would wake up and it'd be $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $25,000. And I saw this abundance of wealth just being created off a number that kind of just sat there that, for, as you said before, it's there, you couldn't touch these moments, but for some reason they were being valued at such a high number. And it kind of just confirmed my theory of the Metcalfes Theory that we talked about earlier, is you saw more people were coming onto the network and the demand was growing, and you just kind of saw that there was a high amount of demand and only a little amount of supply at the time. And so it kind of just made me even go into this space more, because I was like, oh shit, I just turned $300 into like 75 grand at the time. Like, this is absolutely crazy. I was on Top Shot for probably 6-7 hours a day. Where I had one of my first lessons is kind of, I never sold at the top. I thought to myself, I was like, this is the next project for the 500, 200 years. And kind of my brother, he was with me at the time. He was like, we gotta sell. And I was just ignorant. I was saying, Kevin, how could the prices go down? All this and that. I was like, I had such a belief in the project that I think nothing bad could have happened. And as everything did, what once goes up has to come down. And we saw all that money pretty much just go to, not to zero, but we didn't have the huge gains, and we cashed out something, but we didn't have the potential realized gains that we could have. And that kind of was that first instance of, this is a learning lesson. It's wins and losses in this industry. And that's where I realized is you got to have that fundamental framework and a sound, you have to have a sound mind of knowing when to get in and when to get out. Because at the time I was just so happy and just so much enjoyment that I just didn't want to let it go. But that wasn't the end for me for NFTs. And so that's after that, I was like, okay, Top Shot was kind of dying down. So I was like, where can I go through next? So then I moved into the ETH NFTs, and I was looking around OpenSea, and I didn't really know what I wanted to buy. I didn't know much about projects. And so one of my first kind of theories I had was, okay, this idea of social value. So I'll just follow all the best players in the game. And so the first guy I followed was one of the biggest collectors of NFTs, was Pranksy. And so he created this concept of NFT boxes where pretty much you'd buy the box and you could trade the box between the whole month of which one you bought. There was a theme for each of them. So I bought the February box that the artist theme was Joy World. And so I bought it for 1.75 ETH and traded around. And at the end of the month, they lock and they drop you 12 NFTs. So my theory for this was, if I follow him and he has the best collector in the game, then the NFTs he dropped me may be of value. And so kind of after the month kind of went over, I got the NFTs and I tried to put them up for sale to try to regain my cost. And one day, kind of 2 weeks, 3 weeks goes by and nothing sold from it. And so essentially the project from there went to zero. I was down on myself because obviously it was a good amount of money and I wasn't proud of it at the time, but I knew it was something I was interested in and I had a reasoning for investing it, and I just more took it as a lesson learned in the sense of it was only just a mystery box of art pieces being dropped, and why the hell did I do that? And so then that's why we move forward, and that's why in this space is you really have to establish that there's going to be losses, and you can't really let those losses really bury you down, because it's the projects that you don't think are going to go blow up are the ones that blow up. As that was the learning point for me, I tried to just keep on building this. As I said, I keep on going back to this fundamental theory, and I started to really narrow it down when it kind of got around May. It was around the time of my birthday. I didn't have many funds in ETH at the time, and I asked my parents for my birthday, and they asked me what you want as a present, and all I asked for was ETH. So I had some ETH sitting in my wallet. Again, I was just trying to think of why I got into Top Shot is I saw the utility, I saw the brand value of the NBA, and I kind of saw this community being built. So I kind of saw those, as everyone sees, as like the three pillars of this NFT space. And one of the projects I really wanted to get into was VeeFriends. And that was Gary Vee's project. And as I saw, as I wanted to be involved with the big players, but I really didn't want to get hurt again. And he was selling them in a Dutch auction, so they were really expensive. And the price was going down, and as they were going down, I told myself, I'm not missing out on this one. I'm not missing out. I did. I missed out on it because all of them sold out. And so then from there, I didn't really know what I was going to do, so go on to the next project. I'm sitting on my couch probably 2-3 days later, and I had seen these apes popping up all over Twitter. And kind of the big thing I saw from this community is you saw a lot of good energy, and you saw everyone really connecting. All of a sudden is people were changing their profile picture to apes, and people doing ape follow ape, and everyone was just bantering around and kind of just having fun with it. And I was seeing this for the first 2-3 days, and I didn't really know what was going on, but I really liked it. And so I was talking with my buddy Luke, who's on this project now, on the couch, and we were just kind of thinking about why we were in the space and the whole network effect as we were talking. And the thesis for kind of going into the apes was, if I'm going to be in this industry for a long time and I'm really interested, I really need that network connection that I can have to be able to get in those doors with the certain people that have been in the space for a long time, or, that have that verification, or that just are in really good groups or circles to learn more. And so that's what I was thinking about was, if I were to have an ape, and then 3 to 4 months from now, when I kind of want to join the industry, I can use that inner circle of connections to try to help build this product. And so that was kind of just the fundamental theory of why I wanted to get into the apes, was more for I wanted to use it as more of a LinkedIn profile picture, because when you have the same profile picture as someone as saying ape following an ape, it kind of cuts out that barrier that everyone puts up of, there's no gender, race, sex, anything in between people. Everyone's just seeing you as an ape. And that's what I think kind of having that common ground between people in the NFT space is the unique utility and the value that people don't see. Being able just to connect with anyone in the world on just having that similar mindset, I thought that was very interesting. So that was the day. On May 20th, I had purchased my first ape for 0.38 ETH, and I had no clue what was going to happen. From there, it was just like a moon ride that definitely just changed my life forever. And it was just the first day I had bought that ape, I had probably gotten like 150, 200 new followers on Twitter just from me just saying, I'm excited to just be a part of the apes. And everyone just started reaching out and saying, how can I help? How can I help you in the space? What do you need? Anything like that. And I really just was blown away because I really saw it on Twitter, but actually being a part of it was astronomical, and just actually experiencing that network effect. That's where I was hooked on NFTs before. And then once seeing that first night of how all this unfolded, I was like, okay, this is like nothing I've ever been a part of before. This is something that is real, and this is something that is crazy. And so after just getting into this ape project, I really saw the full power of NFTs being utilized. As I talked on majority of the network, but the utility, they had so much different things, as they were the first ones to kind of bring in this token gated merch access, where they were trying to just become more than an NFT. They wanted to be that IP value of like a streetwear brand. Instead of just being like a Bored Ape Yacht Club is an NFT, they want to be the equivalent as a Bape, as that value of the brand. And so they'd come out with really cool merch and very selective limited edition. The first one, they only had like 110 hats, and I remember everyone just getting on, trying to get in on these merch drops as if they were like the Nike sneaker drops, and everyone was just so invested in the community. And it kind of just shows that power of when everyone really puts in the effort of, you know, they're trying to make the community better just for everyone and not just themselves. It shows that the value you can create out of that is astronomical. And so from there, on that utility, there's a lot of derivative projects that really just caught my eye of why I think the apes in general just kind of exploded. As something as simple as, I don't know if you guys have seen, is Jenkins the Valet project. What Jenkins was is he had bought his ape, and there was a little avatar character, but it was dressed as a valet man. And so he had this backstory for his ape where he was a valet driver or a valet worker for the yacht club, and you'd hear all these different stories from the apes, and he would formulate these stories in very creative ways, and he'd post them on Twitter. And people really started to take notice of it, and he started with just 500, 600 followers. And as more and more stories came out about different apes in the industry and different apes in the community, people really wanted to see these as books. And so he kind of just grew this instant Twitter thread into this whole persona of Jenkins the Valet. And he eventually, now today, he ended up getting the original Bored Ape community stipend, where he had $3,000 to start the project. He dropped his own NFT project on top of that, and now today he's signed by CAA and starting his own NFT community funded book, where the apes are going to be characters, and such thing as royalties from the book sales will go back to the apes. Obviously, it's a summarized story, but it really shows that this opportunity in NFT in this industry can empower you to do whatever you want. And that's kind of where we wanted to be as a Shrimp Society, is kind of influence innovation. And that's where this kind of whole industry is going, is as it's the individual can create so much power and so much value for this community. And it was just a combination of everyone in the community doing their own separate and little things. And that's where you saw where the value is for that $150,000 floor for being an ape, is because at the time they were nothing. It was just an NFT, and it was the people in the community and the insights and the different minds that they brought into this community is what brought that value for the apes. That's where I guess the full ride of NFTs kind of started. Once I got into the apes and I saw there was the real value and I saw the price climbing, I had no clue how high it could go, but I knew there was value there. And so that's where I knew that eventually, as I said, I missed the Top Shot bubble. And I got to have that foundation of, you know, when you got to sell, and when you're in this process of actually just seeing the price appreciation. I grew this emotional attachment to my ape. I had its own merch. I had Gary Vee. I ran to him one day in the city and had him sign my ape shirt. I was an absolute lunatic at this point. Everyone, this digital ape could have been like my son at this point. And kind of led up to, as I was seeing, there's just so much inflation at the time, and I realized that you have to realize gains at some point. And that day, eventually it all led up to the mutant drop, and so I knew that I finally had to get out, because I think this was the top for at the time. So I sold it for amount of money that I'll probably never see more in my life of, depending on, I don't know, however much wealth or whatever goes on in the future. But I can honestly say that from that crazy ride, the day I sold my ape, I was less happy than the day I bought it. You could probably think I'm crazy, you can think I'm a lunatic, but the amount of enjoyment of that ride, of just meeting so many people in the industry and being part of this community, that was priceless. Compared to when I sold it, I was a mopey, and it was so bad. But that was really just showed me how much NFTs can really mean to people. And so that was where I kind of saw, okay, this is from NFT, so where do I go from here? As you can see, we've kind of started this project of okay, we're going into NFTs, yes, but now you can kind of see as my story progressed that I do have this fundamental theory of why I think NFTs are important and what can make a good NFT. As a summary and kind of refresher, the three pillars I kind of start with was the art, IP value, utility, and community. You want to just see NFTs as equity. And what companies are you trying to be a part of in this next 5 to 10 years? Do you want to be a part of an Amazon, a Tesla, an Apple, or do you want to be on like the Enron, Amazon, GameStop side? And when you go into these projects, you really got to see who's behind them and the teams that really drive these projects, because it's the innovation that's going to keep these around for the 5 to 10 years. When you're just throwing up a JPEG of something random and there's nothing behind it, that's something that's going to go to zero. You can see something in 5 to 10 years of IP value being very valuable. If you look at something like Pokemon, now you don't really hear about it anymore, but if you actually went back and look at some of the biggest IP value branded things in our history, Pokemon's number one, which is worth $92 billion. Oh, wait, $920 billion. My bad on that. And you go down the list. You have Hello Kitty, $800 billion, Winnie the Pooh, $750 billion. It kind of just shows you, and the reason why it's because of that, of how many different utilities they've used across their brand is they have TV shows, they have games, they have trading cards, they have all these different things. And that's just all creates one wealth around the brand. And that's where kind of one of the big parts I like about NFTs is kind of seeing how VFriends and Bored Apes really wanted to sink into that brand value. They don't want to just be an NFT, is that you can be a streetwear brand, you can be a media content brand, you can be a gaming company. And it's kind of, people don't realize that because they just think, oh, it's because you can't touch it, why is there value across this brand? And so it kind of, I guess my counterpoint to that is you think about just Nike shoes, and you just think about a regular Nike Jordan, they go for whatever, 120, 200, and then all of a sudden you have a Nike and you put Travis Scott's name on top of it, that instantly puts the price 10x to $5,000, $10,000, and it's just like, it's still a Nike shoe, but you're just putting their name, their brand on top of it, and it's instantly $5,000, $10,000 more dollars. And so that's where I think an area of where these NFTs just give like this digital IP value, where then eventually you can go from merchandise to games and to Netflix shows and to movies, all based off of this one NFT. But on top of that, it's creating value that will be redistributed back to their holders. If you were the first one to own that Pokemon Charizard, if you got royalties on every single television show, comic book, t-shirt, game, card that Charizard was used in, you would get a percentage of that. And then what would the value of that Charizard be? And today, you see cards of those going for $3-4 million, and people don't realize that there is value in just the branding of things. And so as the second point, we come into this utility. This is where kind of the NFTs separate themselves from just this Web 2 of, there's so many different ways to do utility. As you saw with the merch drops, you can now do ticket access and certain concepts like in gaming, like play to earn. For an example, you have GTA 5, you go on different heists and you earn money with your friends that are just in-game currency that can only be used in the game. Well, think about in certain situations, if you were playing all your games and the in-game currency that you actually were winning was able to be used for real currency. And so this is eligible now with this whole concept of NFTs because, you know, the blockchain verifies where you can actually have legit cryptocurrencies in these games. So people like Decentraland and different games have created online digital casinos where they're able to go in and you're playing blackjack with your friends. And it's just so different, and it's such next level technology that the people just really haven't learned it yet. And the more you learn is the more you'll find these different areas of what you want to get into. And lastly, the community aspect. And this is the big, I think, area that kind of drives this social value of everyone's being connected on such a wide scale. And one of the main mediums for that is Discord. And as you've seen so far, we've started to drive people into the Shrimp Society Discord. And it's a kind of a platform for everyone to just be themselves. As that was one of the things for me. I was always just very insecure growing up, and, you know, just very in my head and very shy person, an introvert. And you know, in this NFT space, everyone can really just express who they want to be. And you can see on Discord is people just are there for fun. No one really the community really drives of just being a good person and really don't shit on other people, because in reality, just when you're being judgmental of others, you're just not being curious, and that's just being kind of a shitty person. And that's what we're trying to drive in with this NFTs is it's pretty much just getting a group of people who are geared towards a common mission to kind of just drive towards that mission. And here we're trying to spread this value of good energy really can attract and retain good energy. And that's where like the NFT space, as you can see, when something is very special and very unique, it can have a network effect over hundreds of thousands of people, as you saw with the apes, as you've seen with VeeFriends, you see with gutter cats. And that's where I think is the real power of this NFT, this social influence combined with the utility, combined with brand values, really where you can get a foundation of a good NFT. And so I guess kind of that's where I've been talking now for probably a long time, and you probably have tuned out, and I don't know if I've rambled on or anything, but I guess lastly I gotta just go with some lessons to leave with. Everything kind of just happened for a reason in my mind. Is I saw ETH, and then I learned about Top Shot, and then I got into NFTs, and then it happened with the ape, and kind of just all of that kind of collision of events have just driven me to this passion of what I want to do, and kind of just being here today of why I'm talking to you guys. And it's really not about the money. And people who, if you think about the people who were here first, were making $0. If you want to take a project like CryptoPunks, they were minted for free. They were cost $0, and today they're going for over 300, 400 grand. Some go for millions. And so really you need to think about, why are you here, and the interest that you have in your project, and that's what's going to provide value for yourself. That will be the value you put in will create wealth for a community as a whole. So it's, if you're not interested in the project, there's no sense in investing in it if you're not going to touch it, and you're not going to be a part of the community, and you're not going to use it. Follow the teams, not ideas. You can see there's a lot of good ideas out there, but a lot of people, they can't actually take action to actually follow through with those ideas. A lot of people say in this industry, oh, it's going to be the 3D model of the metaverse collision with, you're going to get staking and passive income of 100,000. Those are the projects that are going to be going to zero in the next 2 to 3 years, because they don't have the ability. Some may do, but you really need a team and a lot of tech and a lot of thought and utility to go actually follow through with a long-term vision like that. And simplicity, and kind of realizing who you're investing in and who you really want to be a part of, because these teams put out the initial one, but it's the community and everyone else that can help drive it for the long 2 to 3, 5 year stint. And when you see this happening a lot in the industry, you see so many people making millions off these projects that were free and now worth 10 ETH. And the biggest thing for, as an investor right now, when you're first getting into it, it's really hard to harness the FOMO. But you really need to, because you don't really know what people have. Some people might have the most liquidity that you just didn't even know about. Some people might be trading with their last dollars. And so kind of seeing people just having all these gains, they only post the wins that they have. They'll never post the losses. So even though you see so many people winning and just making millions off of nothing, you really got to remember that you just want to be involved in what you are. You want to just stay in your lane and everything will work out. I promise. If you keep on, you have that fundamental theory, you keep on going to your roots and stick to your principles, I think that you can really be successful in this industry. And so lastly, this last standpoint is just be curious in this industry. Don't shit on projects. Look to go into different things. I more just stick into what I like. I like the apes. I like that utility. I like the community, the brand value. I want to get in more of the gaming, and I haven't gone into the art industry, and that's something I really want to learn more about, and it's something that's very interesting. And there's so many different projects and so many great people in this industry, and that's why I think it's so unique, because you can really find your niche and elevate. And as you said, as we talked about all this podcast, leveraging your tools to know what you like and know what you don't like, and think about something you want to be a part of for the next 5 to 10 years from now. It's, why would you go to a restaurant, order something you don't like, and have a bad experience? And that's the same way you're going to have with NFTs if you're going into your first project just to think it's going to make you $1,000, $20,000, you're not going to have that enjoyment if it doesn't. And so really just have that beginner's mindset when you're going about everything. Start small, start with one project, learn what that project means and learn the values of that project, learn about others in the community, and then go into the utility aspect of, okay, how can I leverage this NFT to make this my own brand? Maybe you're a graphic designer and you want to make merch or logos around this NFT, and how can I spread that to others and create a sub community where I have people within this NFT that are more interested in the community as a whole than just the NFT. And that's just kind of adds on to each other of when you realize that there is endless opportunities and there's so much good energy in this space, you realize that a lot of change can happen. And so that's what we're here to do. There's a lot to go into this industry. There's a lot of education, but you're here early. And if you want to stick with us, we'll be keeping doing this content of we really do care. And that's why we're putting our faces and our voices and our credibility behind this, because we're really trying to build something special. So we'll be back next week, Sunday dinners, write in, tune in, Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, Shrimp Gang. Let's go. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.